Okay, so welcome to session 9 of our professional development series for grades 3 through 12, content literacy in action. Session 9 is going to focus today on summary writing to develop reading comprehension. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Natalie Kleber, and I am the middle school and high school literacy PD specialist here at the Department of Education. So welcome. Okay, so our objective today is that you're going to be able to implement the summary writing to develop reading comprehension support with students while using your high quality instructional materials. Our agenda today is that we are going to review what the content literacy series is. We're going to talk about the purpose of the summary writing. We're going to look at it in action, talk about some next steps, and then a closure. So each session, I've kind of been talking a little bit about Scarboroughs reading rope, and specifically for grades 3 through 12, we talk about the fact that this lower half, the word recognition strand, we always hope that that comes to us developed. We know that's not always the case. And so in that case, go look at the first half of our double feature series, which is about how to use the lift kit to fill in some of these gaps in the lower half. But we know that our job always, no matter what, with every kid in grades 3 through 12 is this language comprehension part of the rope. And that as students become increasingly strategic here, this helps develop skilled readers. And so today's summary writing really focuses on multiple parts of this. This whole upper strand is called language comprehension. A lot of times my secondary teachers will ask me, Natalie, my kids are struggling with reading comprehension. What do I do? So reading comprehension, there's not one thing that's kind of like a fix all or a catch all for those things. But summary writing is one of the most inclusive that includes as many of the skills as possible to help improve their reading comprehension. So let's go ahead and dive in. So we've said that the content literacy series builds proficiency within the 4 areas of literacy, which are reading, writing, speaking, and listening, using your high quality instructional materials in a whole class setting. These are the things that you're doing every day with your students, using your curriculum in your whole class setting. And I've divided them up between reading, writing, and then speaking and listening. So in our reading section, we have the whole class read aloud, the partner reading, the independent reading, the annotating text, direct and explicit vocabulary instruction, and reading and writing for a purpose. And reading and writing for a purpose is still coming up, but we've covered the rest of those. I'll show you how to access previous recordings if you need that. We also have the writing portion, which is creating a claim. Reading and writing for a purpose fits there too. Today, we're diving into summary writing to develop comprehension. Using rubrics, using student exemplars in our last session together, it's going to cover writing frames. Then we have speaking and listening, and these are coming soon, our discussion tracker, our Socratic seminar, and our fishbowl discussion. Just checking our chat. Okay. So what is the purpose of this particular support? The purpose is to develop reading comprehension skills. It's also to help students extract the most important information from a text, whether that text is written, visual, or auditory. You still need the same components of skills in order to develop a summary. And you should practice with all these different mediums as well, because all of these text can be in the form of all of these. Okay, so let's dive in. There's some pre-work involved in the support, and really most or all the supports. You want to pre-read the selected text so that you can become familiar with the words, ideas, and you know what you want students to pull from the text. What lens are they going to use? Also, search for places where students may struggle, anticipate the struggle, and plan for it. For text with heavy domain-specific vocabulary, consider some work with words before reading by selecting the direct and explicit vocabulary instruction document, which is what we went over last week in this webinar, from the content literacy documents. Also consider teaching the annotating strategy prior to the reading strategies so that students know best practices while reading. Let's hop out of here real quick and just look real quick at the content literacy series. So I'll have Sarah post the link in there, but in our literacy library on the Louisiana Believes website, our second pillar is literacy, instruction, intervention, and extension. And the very second thing you see here is the content literacy support resources. This is what this entire session is about. These are where they're housed. these are all of the actual documents, okay? If you want to view, let me go ahead and put that in the chat. If you want to view the actual recordings of the previous one, oh, Sarah did. Thanks, Sarah. If you want to view the previous recordings, you can do that as well. Let me go to our literacy library. I have a bookmark so we can find it fast. You want to go to the third one, which is professional growth. Okay, you want to scroll all the way down to the bottom right. And these are the slide decks that I do every week. So like last week's is already up there. If you want to access any of the previous slide decks, it's at the very bottom of the professional learning link. And all of the actual live webinars can be accessed down here at the bottom. So if you want to show these in a PLC or a teacher collaboration, or if you just want to view it back yourself, you can do that. They're all there for you. This one will be posted sometime this week there as well. So that's how to view the recordings and how to access the documents. Let's jump back in. Okay. So step one, you want to model finding the topic sentence of the passage and point out where the topic sentence can be found. When you're modeling, you want to do a think aloud of how you knew it was the topic sentence. Model finding them in different places throughout lessons by annotating the text so that students can have different experiences finding them. They're not, most of the time they're the first sentence, but they are not always the first sentence. If there is no topic sentence, which can happen, show students how to find the main idea from the first paragraph or the first sentence or the two of the paragraphs. The topic or main idea can be found by asking yourself, who or what is this selection mostly about? Okay, and then I have 3 little points down here at the bottom. When I'm teaching summary writing in my class, I would have this, and I'm going to show you what else, on an anchor chart to refer to constantly as we're building our summaries. So topic sentences are usually the first sentence of a paragraph, but not always. That would be at the top of my anchor chart. Sometimes they can be found within the paragraph and again at the end. Other times it's implied and the students need to pull out all the key details together to determine what they all have in common and what the selection is about. So, you know, those are different ways to find a topic sentence. I tell them that, and then I go ahead and model how to find one. Okay, so let's pretend like we're going to do that today in our class together. So good afternoon, class. Today we're going to practice writing a summary for our article on wind turbines. Practicing writing summaries helps us get better at finding the most important information in a text. It also helps us to get better at comprehending what we're reading. So that's why we're doing that today. Let's start our summary writing practice by finding the topic sentence and explaining how to find a topic sentence. This will be the first part of our summary. Our first part is we're going to name this topic sentence and we're going to write in our own words. Okay, step 2 is going to be model finding key details. Okay, so you want key details can guide us to a full understanding of the topic and are what the text is mainly about. They support this topic sentence. The model should be an explicit model where you annotate in the text and you underline or you highlight the key details. You do a think aloud where you talk through your thinking on how you knew that was a key detail, so that students can use that same line of thinking when it's their turn to locate a key detail. So sometimes when we do this activity or even when we ask students to annotate, we'll notice that they have, like, literally, if we give them a highlighter, sometimes the whole paragraph's highlighted, like they think the whole thing's important. And so this is a great time to pull them back in with that think aloud or that model and start to help them own that same thinking that we have on how to determine if something is important or not. So supporting details can also answer the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how about the topic. And that can also go on your anchor chart, you know, when they're finding different key details. How do they do that? You're going to model finding key details in several types of text, including but not limited to these things. It's also, I think, important to note here that when I say model finding different topic sentences or different key details, I don't mean doing this all at one time for sure. Take learning opportunities as you're teaching with the text you're teaching to just make that a teachable moment. Pre-plan for that. Look back and, you know, look through the lesson that's coming up and say, oh, the topic sentence is implied today. Let me go ahead and do a model for that today because I haven't shown them how to do that yet. You know, do this over the course of several lessons, several units, several modules, whatever it is that you're teaching, okay? But you can model finding them in comparisons and contrast, and statistics can be key details sometimes, graphs, quotations from authorities, vivid descriptions, all of these different things can be key details. Supporting details could also come in the form of facts, statements, or examples. Okay. And then lastly, okay, let me go back to that. Lastly, step 3 says have students write the topic sentence in their own words as the first part of their summary. Then have them choose the best 2 to 3 supporting details that truly help to describe the topic. So let's go ahead first and model how so the first thing we're going to do is model how to find the topic sentence and how you knew that was the topic sentence. That's step 1 in this, okay? So I'm going to back out so I can actually show you some highlighting and annotating while we do this. Hopefully it's big enough to where y'all can still read it. All right, so here's our passage today, guys. We're talking about wind turbines could offer a double whammy in the fight against climate change. And I'm looking for our topic sentence. I'm looking for the sentence that I know is the topic of the whole paragraph. It's telling us what the paragraph's mainly about, mostly about. And so let's go ahead and start reading. Besides harnessing wind to generate clean energy, turbines may help to funnel carbon dioxide to systems that pull the greenhouse gas out of the air. Researchers say their simulations show that wind turbines can drag dirty air from above a city or a smokestack into turbines' wakes. The boost that boosts the amount of CO2 that makes it to machines that can remove it from the atmosphere. The researchers plan to describe their simulations in a wind tunnel test of a scaled down system at a meeting of the American Physical Society's Division of Fluid Dynamics in Indianapolis on November 21st. So as I was reading that, I kept constantly hearing turbines, wind turbines. Most all of it was about like harnessing this energy. So in this particular case, my topic sentence is actually going to be this very first sentence. This first sentence is really what the whole paragraph is pretty much about. It's what the paragraph's mainly about. And if my students needed it here, you're using your scaffolds in this model depending on the needs of your class. So if they needed some notes here, I would make some annotations. Right now, I can just put a little text box and even say, just so they know, when to go to do it again, this is the topic sentence. Okay. Again, I can put what it's mainly about if they need that scaffold in the annotations as well. Use that as your guide. Okay. So that was step 1. Step 2 was to model how to find key details. Okay, so if we go back to our little pretend anchor chart that we had, we said key details can be any of these things. They could be comparisons, contrast, statistics, graphs, quotes from authorities, vivid descriptions. We said that key details answer those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how about the topic sentence. So when I go back to my paragraph in a second, I'm looking for something that seems pretty important. It might have some other repeat words from the topic sentence in there, and it's going to answer one of those questions. It's going to answer that who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay, so let's jump back into our paragraph. And that very second sentence kind of stands out to me because one of the things we said that was important was quotations from authorities or maybe important notes. So it's saying researchers say that their simulations show that wind turbines can drag dirty air from above a city or a smokestack into the turbine's wakes. So it's kind of saying how it funnels the carbon dioxide out. It's kind of saying how that happens. And it's one of our important questions or question words, right? As well as being a quote from a researcher. So we're going to go ahead and highlight that as well. And we're going to pick a different color so we know it's a key detail. So we're going to do that one blue. We're going to make another little text box. And we're going to put key detail, so we know. And we're also going to put answers the how. Answers the how of how CO2 is funneled out. Okay. And we teach our students that these annotations are so important because it kind of gives our thinking, puts our thinking on the page. And when you are checking student work and you're going around and you're looking at their annotations, you can see where the disconnect is in the passage to see what they understood, what they didn't understand, what gaps you still need to fill in their content knowledge, as well as what skill might be missing. So if they totally mock this up after, they might need that help back with annotations. Okay. So this is just a very brief example of what this could look like. Again, just being very purposeful as you're going through your scope and sequence to say, okay, this is a great text to pull out how to model finding this key detail or finding where this topic sentence is. Okay. Now, step 3 said that, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. Step 3 said that we're going to put this in our own words, but let me go back into our model. So let's put our topic sentence that we found into our own words. Okay, so the topic sentence was, besides harnessing wind to generate clean energy, turbines may help to funnel carbon dioxide to systems that pull the greenhouse gas out of the air. Okay, so, model as much as you need for your kids for this, but definitely one thing that I would do if I'm modeling the first time is I'm pulling out the most important words. Sometimes kids don't know what words to leave out, which ones to leave in. So definitely pulling these out to help start your sentence. Wind turbines and fighting climate change are what this whole paragraph's about. Okay, so I would have those 2 words or that phrase, that set of words there for us to construct a sentence around. If I think they need us to actually construct a sentence together, I'm going to model that too. Okay, so wind turbines are helping us to fight climate change by, removing CO2 from the air, could be one way. A great thing to do when they're trying to make their own sentence in their own words, though, is not to have that sentence up, to kind of force them to use the words that are in their head to pull from to make a sentence. Okay, so wind turbines are fighting climate change by removing CO2. Okay. It's really important too, guys, not to just do this for them or model this for them, but model for them how to do the process of creating a summary. So making sure that our think aloud and our model and our notes are clear enough that they can duplicate this on their own. And if they can't, when you release them, to pull them back in so that you can help them with that. Okay, so now let's look for supporting details to support our first sentence. These are the most important details in the text that all relate to our topic sentence. And like I said, consider that anchor chart. And we've already done this. I have a little blue sentence. So I can say we can either copy and paste this to there if they need that for evidence later, if they're writing a CER or something, or I can have them put their key details in their own words too. So wind turbines drag dirty air from a city. Okay, so that would be one of our key details. And as much as you need to model, again, that answered the how question, as what they need in your model. All right. Let's jump back in. Okay. So I want you to look at some upcoming lessons to decide which text would be best to model how to use this particular support. I want you to print or bookmark the supports, the content literacy series, so that you can refer back to the explicit directions. And then ask yourself after lesson, after you've taught this, if you highlighted the intentionality required from that support, or are you noticing a difference as a result of the implementation? If this isn't taking, go back to those explicit steps, see what else you need to model, see what might be missing from your think aloud to help them do that. So last thing before we get to our closures, I just want to show you what the actual support looks like. And this is it. So summary writing to develop comprehension. And, with the math team, we discussed that this one probably doesn't apply as much to them. If you didn't catch in my other sessions, all of the content areas at the State Department have also vetted these, as well as the diverse learners group, and they've kind of helped to pull out where this applies in the curriculum and the content. So everyone starts with when to use it in the different content area, who it could support, and these are all really great for a whole class, but if you have particular students struggling, it says who could support there. The purpose, and I always tell you why it's so important to communicate that purpose to your students, especially in the secondary area. If they don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it, they're not going to buy into it. So it's really important to do that. And here's that explicit process that we just went through together. I know I'm successful when, You know you're successful with this particular support when students are able to fill out that curriculum-based graphic organizer or answer the questions that are asked that day by the end of the lesson independently or with very little scaffolding. If they're not able to do that, they're going to need more support in practicing and modeling this summary writing. Students will start to recognize some of the words read, and they're going to begin reading your content area text with the appropriate fluency and develop comprehension of main ideas in your content area, which is the ultimate goal. Additional considerations, and usually this is written for diverse learners in mind, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So some students may need additional support. This could look like this, not limited to, but it could look like this. You might need some sentence stems that start that main idea sentence for them or that topic sentence for them, as well as transition words between sentences of the key details already being filled in. So if this was a text in particular that was written chronologically, I might have the main idea of this is first, next, last, especially for students, depending on their level, students with disabilities, especially English language learners would really benefit from this if they're, closer in their spectrum of just being acclimated to the English language. Collaborative groupings where students of mixed abilities assist in the creation of the summary prior to any independent practice. So say I did a model and I feel like they need some more support. I could do a cooperative grouping there where I really model the expectations for each person in the group, how they would contribute to the summary, making sure they're doing their thinking out loud too before I release them to independent practice. Small group instruction where the teacher continues to model and give guided practice and feedback for students who need more support with writing their summaries. So say I did this whole class and I did it a few times and the class is pretty proficient with it, but I have just these 2 or 3 students who are still really struggling with this. If I'm releasing the kids and they're working on an exit ticket ahead of time or they're writing a CER or whatever it is, I can pull those 2 or 3 students to the back with me or the front, wherever of the classroom. And I can model this with them in a small group atmosphere where I say, okay, guys, let Ms. Kleber model for you again how we came up with the summary, and then, work through and do some guided practice with them there too, is another layer of support that you can add for them. Okay. So direct and explicit instruction is the best way to help struggling readers. And doing this explicit model and the think loud behind why we're writing a summary, what it's going to help with, how to do it, is your direct and explicit instructions coming directly from you or explicitly stating how to do it. Extracting the most important information in a text and synthesizing a summary of that information is a complex set of skills that bolster reading comprehension. There is strong empirical evidence that summary writing is directly linked to writing, reading and comprehending. So it's definitely something you can work on within your classroom to help students with that. Good comprehenders monitor their own comprehension as they read. That's one of the things that good comprehenders do. And writing summaries is a great way to help facilitate that particular skill. So if they're not automatically monitoring their own comprehension as they read, forcing them to write summaries and start to summarize as they read helps them to internally develop that skill if they don't already have it. So as always, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us at louisianaliteracy@la.gov. We would love to hear your feedback, whether it's about this particular support or other supports, or that you see a need in your classroom or your school or your district for a particular support that's not there yet. I would love to hear back from you about that. Or if you have questions about implementation, I would love to hear that too. So just reach out and we would love to help y'all.